I fully funded my mother's luxury retirement and bought her a home, only to be publicly mocked as a headache compared to my jobless brother. So, I cut off every single penny, sold the house, and watched their entitlement crumble until the police arrived. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The exhaustion I felt that evening wasn't just physical. It was a deep, marrow-level weariness that seemed to pull at my very skin. I was sitting at the head of the mahogany dining table I had purchased 3 months prior, watching the candlelight flicker against the crystal wine glasses I had shipped from Italy for this specific occasion. It was my mother, Helen's, 62nd birthday, and I had flown in from a high-stakes supply chain negotiation in Tokyo just 6 hours earlier. My eyes were burning from the dry cabin air of the plane, and my body was screaming for sleep, but I was here. I was always here. "This roast is a little dry, don't you think, Ralph?" my mother asked, poking at the expensive cut of meat I had arranged for the private chef to prepare. Ralph, her longtime partner who lived in the guest suite of the house I owned, shrugged, wiping grease from his chin. "It's all right, Helen. A bit tough, maybe, but free food is free food." I gripped my fork a little tighter. "The chef has a Michelin star, Mom. It's prepared exactly medium rare." Helen waved a hand dismissively, her gold bracelets, my Christmas gift to her 2 years ago, clinking together. "You always have to be so technical, Emily. It's just food. You don't have to turn everything into a spreadsheet." I took a sip of water, forcing the cool liquid past the lump in my throat. I looked across the table at my brother, Ryan. He was 30 years old, slouching in his chair, wearing a stained hoodie that looked absurdly out of place in the elegant dining room. He was scrolling on his phone, barely acknowledging the meal that cost more than he had made in the last 5 years combined. "Ryan, put the phone away," I said softly. "It's Mom's birthday." Ryan didn't look up. He just smirked, typing something rapidly. "Chill, Em, I'm networking. Big things coming for the crypto project. You wouldn't get it. You're too stuck in the corporate rat race." "Networking," I repeated, my voice flat. "Is that what we're calling arguing with strangers on Twitter now?" "Emily, stop it," Helen snapped, her voice sharp. She reached over and patted Ryan's hand affectionately. "Leave your brother alone. At least he's here, present in the moment, not checking work emails every 5 minutes like some robot." I froze. I haven't looked at my phone once since I walked in the door. I flew 12 hours to be here. "Physically, sure," Helen sighed, looking at me with a profound sense of disappointment that I knew all too well. "But your energy? It's so heavy, Emily. It's suffocating. You bring this stress into my house." "My house," I thought. "The deed is in my name. The mortgage comes out of my account. The heat that keeps you warm, the lights illuminating your face, the chair you're sitting on, it's all me." "I'm sorry my job stresses you out," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But that job pays for everything we're enjoying right now." The table went silent. Ralph chewed loudly. Ryan snickered, finally looking up from his screen. "There she goes," Ryan said, rolling his eyes. "The martyr complex. I pay for everything, bow down to me. God, you're insufferable." "It's not a complex if it's a fact, Ryan," I shot back, my patience finally fraying. Helen slammed her hand on the table. "Enough. This is my birthday. I will not have you ruining it with your constant need for validation, Emily." She took a deep breath, composing herself, then turned a beaming smile toward Ryan. "Why can't you be more relaxed like your brother? He brings such light into this home. He makes me laugh. You give us nothing but headaches." The air left the room. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to say she was joking. But she wasn't. She was looking at Ryan with a look of pure adoration, the kind of look I had spent my entire adult life trying to earn. "I give you headaches," I whispered. "Yes," she said cruelly, picking up her wine glass. "Headaches and stress. Honestly, Emily, sometimes I look at you and I just wish you were more like your brother. He knows how to live, you just know how to work." I looked at Ryan. He was grinning, a smug, triumphant look plastered on his face as he reached for the wine bottle I had bought. "Here's to living," Ryan mocked, raising his glass to me. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't a loud snap like a bone breaking. It was quiet, like a high-tension wire finally giving up the ghost. I looked at the three. Of them, my mother, the woman I worshipped. My brother, the leech, and Ralph, the silent beneficiary. And I realized that the love I thought I was buying didn't exist. The betrayal was worse than the diagnosis itself. It was a terminal rot in the foundation of my life. I didn't scream, I didn't flip the table, I didn't even cry. I simply placed my napkin on the table, folding it neatly next to my plate. The silence that followed Helen's comment hung heavy in the air, but they didn't seem to notice the shift in the atmosphere. They interpreted my silence as submission. They thought they had won, that they had successfully put me back in my box, the dutiful daughter, the ATM, the silent servant. "Well," I said, my voice terrifyingly calm even to my own ears. "I'm glad we cleared that up. I wouldn't want to be the source of any more headaches." "Good," Helen said, taking a bite of a potato. "Now, let's have cake. Ryan, did you tell Mom about that girl you met?" I stood up. My legs felt heavy, like I was wading through wet concrete. "I'm actually not feeling well. Jet lag. I'm going to head to my hotel." "Hotel," Ralph grunted. "Why spend the money? Just crash in the guest room." "No," I said, gripping the back of the chair. "I think I need some space." Helen didn't even look up. "Suit yourself. Just make sure you transfer that money for the landscaping before you fly back. The gardeners are coming on Tuesday." I walked out of the dining room, down the hallway lined with family photos. I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There were dozens of photos of Ryan, Ryan at graduation, Ryan at a party, Ryan as a baby. There was only one photo of me, and it was a group shot where I was half blocked by Ralph's shoulder. I stepped out into the cool night air. The house, a sprawling 4-bedroom ranch in a gated community, looked beautiful from the outside. The landscape lighting I had installed last month cast a warm, inviting glow on the stone facade. It looked like a home. It looked like the American dream. I got into my rental car and sat there for a long time, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The physical distress hit me then. A wave of nausea rolled through my stomach, and a migraine spiked behind my left eye, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I was shaking. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Helen. "Mom, you really ruined the vibe tonight. Ryan is upset. You should apologize to him before you leave town. Also, don't forget the landscapers." I stared at the screen, the blue light illuminating the tears that were finally starting to spill over. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't thank me for the dinner. She didn't care that I had just flown across the world to see her. She only cared about Ryan's feelings and the bills. I drove to the hotel in a daze. When I got to my room, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my laptop. I logged into my bank accounts. I pulled up the joint account I shared with Helen. It was supposed to be for household emergencies and groceries. I had been depositing $4,000 a month into it, on top of paying the mortgage and utilities directly. I scrolled through the transaction history. Liquor store, $145 GameStop, $60 DraftKings, $200 Club Vibe, $300 ATM withdrawal, $500 ATM withdrawal, $500. My stomach dropped. This wasn't grocery money. This was Ryan's allowance. I scrolled back months. Thousands upon thousands of dollars, my hard-earned money, siphoned out of the account and into Ryan's pockets. Helen wasn't just favoring him emotionally, she was funding his lifestyle with my paycheck. I thought about the conversation at dinner. "I wish you were more like your brother." Of course she did. Ryan was fun. Ryan was easy. Ryan didn't have to work 80 hours a week or travel to 3 different time zones. Ryan got to be the free spirit because I was the one paying for his freedom. I looked at the transaction from yesterday. Catering deposit, $800. I had paid for my own humiliation. I closed the laptop, a cold resolve settling over me. They thought I was weak. They thought I was desperate for their love. They thought I would keep paying just to keep a seat at a table where I wasn't respected. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. I was a supply chain expert. My entire career was built on identifying inefficiencies and cutting them out. To understand the magnitude of this betrayal, you have to understand the history. I wasn't just a dutiful daughter. I was the safety net, the foundation, and the roof over their heads. 5 years ago, my father passed away suddenly. He left behind a mountain of debt and no life insurance. Helen, who had never worked a day in her life, was destitute. She was facing eviction, bankruptcy, the total collapse of her world. I was 29 then, just starting to make real money in my career. I stepped in. I didn't hesitate. I paid off the funeral costs. I paid off the credit card debt. And then I made the biggest decision of my life. I bought the house. It was supposed to be a fresh start for her. I told her, "Mom, I'll handle the mortgage and the bills. You just enjoy your life. You've raised us. Now it's your turn to rest." Ryan was 25 at the time. He promised he would step up. He said he would get a job, help Mom around the house, contribute to the utilities. "I've got this, Em," he had told me, looking me in the eye with that charming smile that always let him get away with murder. "I'm going to be the man of the house now." That lasted exactly 3 weeks. Ryan had anxiety that prevented him from working retail. Then he had back problems that prevented him from doing manual labor. Then he decided he was an entrepreneur, which apparently meant sitting in the basement I paid to renovate, playing video games, and buying cryptocurrency with money he begged off Helen. And then there was Ralph. Ralph showed up about 2 years ago. He was a retired mechanic with a pension he refused to touch and a penchant for expensive scotch. He moved in temporarily and never left. I didn't mind at first. I thought he made Mom happy. But over time, I realized he was just another weight in the cart I was pulling. The primary antagonist in this story isn't just their greed, it was the manipulation. Helen had mastered the art of the guilt trip. Every time I tried to set a boundary, she would clutch her chest. "My blood pressure, Emily, you know the doctor said I can't handle stress. Why do you want to kill me?" So I would cave. I would pay the extra bill. I would buy the new car when hers broke down. It just needed an oil change. I bought her peace of mind at the expense of my own sanity. But sitting in that hotel room, staring at the financial bleeding, the picture became clear. Helen wasn't a helpless widow. She was the ringleader. She was taking my money, handing it to Ryan and Ralph, and then criticizing me for not being fun enough. I remembered a comment Ralph had made a few months ago. He had asked me about my 401k. "You got a lot tucked away in there, huh? What happens to that if, God forbid, something happens to you?" At the time, I thought it was just morbid curiosity. Now, I realized he was assessing the asset. I picked up my phone and dialed the one person I knew I could trust, my lawyer, Sarah. It was 2:00 a.m., but she answered on the second ring. "Emily, is everything okay?" "No," I said, my voice finally breaking. "No, Sarah, it's not. I need you to do something for me. I need you to look over the deed to the house and the power of attorney documents I signed for Mom." "Okay," Sarah said, her tone shifting instantly from friend to professional. "What are we looking for?" "I need to know how fast I can legally evict 3 adults from a property I solely own," I said. "And I need to know how to revoke access to every single credit card and bank account by 9:00 a.m. tomorrow morning." There was a pause on the line. "Emily, did something happen?" "Yes," I said, staring at the wall. "I stopped being a daughter and started being a landlord." "Understood," Sarah said. "I'll get the paperwork started. But Emily, you know this is going to get ugly. Family law in these situations, they're going to fight." "Let them fight," I said, feeling a cold, hard stone settle in my gut. "They're about to find out that the headache is actually the one holding up the sky, and I'm done holding it." The next morning, I didn't go to the house. I went to a sleek, glass-walled office building downtown where Sarah, my lawyer and college roommate, practiced family and estate law. I sat in her conference room, the air conditioning humming a low, sterile note that felt like the only clean thing in my world. Spread out on the table before us were stacks of paper, bank statements, credit card bills, and the deed to the house. "Okay, Emily," Sarah said, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. "I've done a preliminary sweep based on the access you gave me last night. It's not good." "How bad?" I asked, staring at a black and white printout of a transaction log. "Well, let's start with the house," Sarah said, pulling a file from the bottom of the stack. "You transferred $30,000 6 months ago for a new roof, correct?" "Yes," I nodded. "Mom called me crying. She said there was a leak in the master bedroom, that mold was growing, and her asthma was flaring up. I wired the money directly to the contractor she recommended." Sarah slid a photo across the table. It was a Google Earth satellite image taken 2 weeks ago, zoomed in on the property. "That is the original roof, Emily. Those shingles are at least 15 years old. There's no patchwork, no new flashing, nothing." I felt the blood drain from my face. But she sent me an invoice, Miller Roofing Services. I ran the EIN on the invoice. Sarah said gently, "It doesn't exist, but the bank routing number where the money was deposited, it belongs to a personal checking account." She hesitated, then slid another paper toward me. "It belongs to Ryan." I closed my eyes, the betrayal hitting me like a physical blow to the chest. It wasn't just that they stole the money, it was the elaborate theater of it. The fake tears about the mold. The coughing fits she would perform over the phone. The stress she claimed to be under. It was all a performance, a script written to extract maximum value from my concern for her health. $30,000, I whispered. "He spent $30,000 on what?" "We can't see his detailed transactions without a subpoena," Sarah explained. "But looking at his social media, new watch, trips to Vegas, investments in NFTs that crashed, it's gone, Emily." "And the car?" I asked, dreading the answer. "The Lexus SUV you lease for Helen," Sarah said. "The dealership called. It's 3 months behind on maintenance, and the mileage is astronomical. It has 40,000 more miles on it than it should for a retiree driving to the grocery store." "Ryan," I said, the realization dawning on me, "she lets him drive it." "She lets him drive it, and based on the toll transponder records associated with the plate, he's driving it out of state regularly," Sarah confirmed. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city traffic. I felt a cold, calculated rage replacing the hurt. I had been playing the role of the dutiful daughter, assuming that if I just gave enough, I would be loved. But I wasn't a daughter to them. I was a resource. I was a coal mine they were stripping bare until the ground collapsed. "What are my options, Sarah?" I asked, turning back to her. "Legally, you hold all the cards," Sarah said, tapping the deed. "The house is in your name alone. There is no lease agreement for them, which makes them tenants at will. In this state, you have to give them 30 days notice to vacate. As for the money, that's civil theft, maybe even fraud if we can prove the fake invoice was a conspiracy between them." "I don't want to sue them yet," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "I want to see them squirm. I want them to realize exactly who pays for the lights they're reading by." "Emily, be careful," Sarah warned. "Narcissists don't de-escalate when they lose control. They explode." "Let them explode," I said, picking up my purse. "I have the detonator right here." I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. With a few taps, I froze the joint account. Then, I opened the credit card app for the card Helen carried, the one Ryan was undoubtedly using, and marked it as lost stolen, triggering an immediate freeze. Finally, I logged into the utility provider for the house. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked. "I'm initiating a service interruption," I said calmly. "The cable and internet package costs me $300 a month. It's in my name. I'm canceling it, effective immediately." I drove to the house an hour later. I didn't park in the driveway, I parked on the street, creating a deliberate distance. When I walked in, the atmosphere was chaotic. Ryan was in the living room, frantically pressing buttons on the remote control. The massive 85-inch television I had bought for the Super Bowl was a black void. "What is going on with this junk?" Ryan yelled, throwing the remote onto the couch. "Mom, the internet is down again. I'm in the middle of a trade." Helen walked out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She looked annoyed, not at Ryan, but at the inconvenience. "I don't know, honey. I'll call the company." "Oh, Emily, you're still here." Her tone was so dismissive, so utterly devoid of warmth, that it actually made what I was about to do easier. "I'm still here," I said, standing in the entryway. "I didn't take off my coat. We need to talk." "Can it wait?" Ryan snapped. "I need to get this Wi-Fi back up. My data is capped." "The Wi-Fi isn't coming back up, Ryan," I said clearly. He froze. Helen stopped mid-stride. "What do you mean?" "I canceled it," I said. "I canceled the cable too, and the streaming services." "Why would you do that?" Helen demanded, her face scrunching up in confusion. "You know Ralph needs his sports channels." "Ralph can pay for them," I said, "just like Ryan can pay for his own data plan." Helen let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Is this about last night? Emily, honestly, you are being so petty. You're punishing us because I said your brother is more fun. This is exactly what I meant about you being a headache." "No," I said, stepping into the living room. "This isn't about last night. This is about the roof." The color drained from Helen's face so fast it was almost comical. She glanced nervously at Ryan, who suddenly found his shoes very interesting. The roof," she stammered. "What about it?" "I spoke to the sea." "On tractor today," I lied smoothly. "Or, I tried to. It turns out Miller Roofing doesn't exist. But strangely, $30,000 disappeared from my account into a routing number that looked very familiar." I looked directly at Ryan. "It's the same routing number I used to send you birthday money 2 years ago." Ryan stood up, puffing out his chest, trying to use his height to intimidate me. It was a tactic that used to work when we were teenagers. It didn't work on a woman who regularly stared down union bosses and supply chain directors. "You snooping into my finances now?" Ryan spat. "That's privacy violation, Emily." "It's not snooping when it's my stolen money," I countered, my voice rising just enough to cut through his bluster. "Where is it, Ryan? Where is the 30 grand?" "I invested it," Ryan shouted, his face turning red. "For the family, I was going to turn it into 100 grand and pay you back, but the market dipped. It's not my fault." "You stole from me," I said to Helen. "You lied about mold. You lied about your health. You helped him steal $30,000 from the daughter who pays for the food in your fridge." "He needed a chance," Helen screamed, throwing the dish towel on the floor. "He's brilliant, Emily. He just needed capital. You have so much and you just hoard it. Why are you so greedy? You wouldn't miss it." "Greedy," I repeated, the word tasting like ash. "I bought this house. I bought that car. I bought the clothes on your back." "You bought them to control us," Helen yelled. "You use your money like a leash. Well, we don't need your charity if it comes with this much judgment." "Great," I said. "Then you won't mind that I canceled the credit cards too." Helen froze. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She must have had a notification she missed. You cut off the card." "The grocery money," Ryan said, panic finally setting in. "Mom, the pre-order for the console. It was on that card." "It's gone," I said. "All of it, the allowance, the utilities, the gas cards, it's all gone." "You can't do that," Ralph yelled, emerging from the hallway looking disheveled. "We have rights, we live here." "You live here because I allow it," I said, turning to him. "And as of this moment, my generosity has officially run out." "You are a spiteful, jealous little girl," Helen hissed, walking toward me, her finger pointed at my face. "You're jealous of Ryan because everyone loves him and nobody likes you. You think your money makes you special. It makes you lonely, Emily. You're going to die alone with your bank account." The words were meant to destroy me. They were designed to hit the deepest insecurity I had, but instead, they just confirmed the diagnosis. The tumor wasn't in me, it was standing right in front of me. Maybe, I said softly, but I won't die broke. Can you say the same? I turned to leave. If you walk out that door, Helen screamed, don't you dare come back. Oh, I'll be back, I said, opening the front door. I'll be back with the sheriff. I thought the confrontation would end it, but it only escalated the madness. For the next 3 days, my phone was a war zone. I received 47 text messages from Helen. They ranged from vicious attacks, "You are dead to me," to pathetic waif-like begging, "I have no food in the house, how can you let your mother starve?" To gaslighting, "I never said those things, you're remembering it wrong." Ryan sent threats. He texted me that he would expose me on social media for elder abuse. He claimed he had spoken to a lawyer who said I couldn't cut them off, which Sarah assured me was laughable. But I didn't engage. I was busy building the case. I hired a private investigator to do a deep dive on Ryan, just to be safe. I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with before I served the eviction papers. The report came back in 48 hours, and it was worse than I thought. Ryan wasn't just gambling. He was in debt to some very bad people. The investments were a cover for online sports betting losses totaling over $60,000. But the kicker was the identity theft. The PI found 3 credit cards opened in my name, using my social security number, registered to a P.O. box in a neighboring town. The total balance was nearly $45,000. I stared at the report in Sarah's office, feeling sick. "He used my social," I said. "How did he get my social?" "Helen," Sarah said grimly. "She has your old tax returns in the attic, doesn't she? From when you were in college." I nodded. My mother had sold my identity to my brother so he could gamble it away. "This is a felony, Emily," Sarah said. "Federal wire fraud, identity theft. If we report this, Ryan goes to prison, not for a weekend, for years." I thought about the little boy I used to pull around in a wagon. I thought about the brother I used to defend on the playground. Then I thought about the man who sat at my table, eating my food, and laughing while our mother wished I was more like him. "He didn't care if he ruined my credit," I said. "He didn't care if he destroyed my career. Security clearance checks. If I had defaulted on these hidden cards, I could have lost my job." "Exactly," Sarah said. "They were willing to burn your life to the ground to keep him warm." "File the police report," I said, my voice shaking but firm, "and serve the eviction notice." "Are you sure?" Sarah asked. "Once we ring this bell, you can't unring it." "I'm sure," I said. "Serve it." The process server went to the house on a Friday afternoon. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. Ryan apparently tried to fight the guy. He threw the papers on the lawn and screamed that he was a sovereign citizen or some internet nonsense he had picked up. But the real escalation happened that night. I was back at my hotel, packing to leave the next day, when my phone rang. It was a neighbor, Mrs. Gable, who lived across the street from my house. "Emily," she whispered, "honey, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Gable. Why?" There's a moving truck in your driveway," she said. "And I see Ryan and Ralph carrying things out. Not boxes, Emily. Furniture. They're taking the electronics. They're taking the paintings." My heart stopped. They weren't just leaving. They were looting the place. They were stripping the copper wiring out of the walls on their way out. "Are they taking the car?" I asked. "They're loading the back of the SUV right now," she said. "It looks like they're trying to fit the dining room chairs in there." The dining room chairs, the ones I had sat in while they mocked me. "Call the police, Mrs. Gable," I said, grabbing my keys. "Tell them there is a burglary in progress. I'm on my way." "Oh my," she gasped. "Okay, I'm calling 911. I ran to the rental car. This was it, the final act. They thought they could strip me bare one last time. They thought they could take the last few pieces of value I had provided and pawn them for quick cash. But they had forgotten that I wasn't just the bank anymore. I was the owner, and they were just thieves caught in the act. The street was bathed in a chaotic strobe of red and blue light when I turned the corner. It looked less like a suburban neighborhood and more like a crime scene from a television drama, which, ironically, was exactly what my family had turned it into. I parked my rental car behind 2 patrol cruisers, the engine idling for a moment as I took a deep, steadying breath. Through the windshield, I saw the spectacle. The moving truck, a rusted, budget rental that Ryan had likely booked with one of the credit cards he opened in my name, was backed up crookedly onto the lawn, leaving deep tire tracks in the grass I paid to have fertilized. The back gate of the truck was open, revealing my dining room table, a stack of flat-screen televisions, and boxes upon boxes of what looked like silverware and linens. Mrs. Gable was standing on her porch in her bathrobe, arms crossed, watching with the grim satisfaction of a neighbor who had endured years of noise complaints. A small crowd of other neighbors had gathered on the sidewalk, whispering and pointing. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the chaos. "You can't touch that. That's my property. I have rights." Ryan's voice pierced the night air. He was standing near the truck, gesturing wildly at 2 uniformed officers. He was wearing his entrepreneur uniform, sweatpants, and a designer t-shirt that cost more than my first car. Helen was there too, wrapped in a shawl, sobbing loudly. "He's my son. He's just moving some things to storage. Why are you treating us like criminals?" "Ma'am, please step back," one of the officers said, his hand resting instinctively near his belt. "We have a report of a burglary in progress." "It's not a burglary if we live here," Ryan screamed, his voice cracking. "My sister is a psycho. She's doing this to harass us." "I'm the sister," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. The entire scene seemed to freeze. The officers turned to look at me. Ryan went pale, his mouth hanging open. Helen stopped crying instantly, her face twisting into a mask of pure venom. "You," Helen shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You did this. You called the police on your own mother. Have you lost your mind?" "I didn't call them," I said calmly, walking up to the lead officer. "My neighbor did, but I am the homeowner." I handed the officer the folder I had brought with me. It contained the deed, the utility bills in my name, and the printout of the unauthorized credit cards. "I'm Emily. I own this property. These 2 individuals have been given notice to vacate, but they decided to strip the fixtures before leaving." The officer, a tall man with a name tag that read SGT, Miller, flipped through the documents under the glare of his flashlight. He looked at the deed, then at the truck. "Is that your furniture in the truck, ma'am?" SGT, Miller asked. "The dining table was purchased by me 3 months ago," I listed, pointing. "The electronics are mine. The car they are loading, that's leased in my name." "She gave them to us," Ryan yelled, trying to step between me and the cop. "It was a gift. You can't take back a gift." "Gifts don't usually involve identity theft, Ryan," I said, locking eyes with him. "Identity theft?" Helen scoffed, stepping forward. "Oh, stop being dramatic, Emily. He borrowed your credit for a few investments. Families help each other." I looked at the crowd of neighbors. They were hearing every word. The shame that Helen should have felt was non-existent, but I felt it for her. "Officer," I said, turning back to SGT. "Miller. In that folder, you will also find a report from my private investigator and a sworn affidavit from my lawyer regarding 3 credit cards opened in my name, using my social security number, without my consent. The billing address for those cards is a P.O. box registered to Ryan." SGT, Miller looked at Ryan. The dynamic shifted instantly. It wasn't a domestic dispute anymore, it was a felony investigation. "Is this true, son?" Miller asked, his voice dropping an octave, becoming heavy and authoritative. She said I could," Ryan stammered, sweat glistening on his forehead. "She told me to handle her finances. She's lying. She's jealous because Mom likes me better." "That's enough," Miller said. He reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I need to run a name. Ryan, last name." I provided it. While the officer ran the check, Helen grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong, her nails digging into my coat. "Stop this," she hissed, her voice low and desperate. "Tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you let him do it. If you don't, they're going to arrest him, Emily. Do you want to see your brother in handcuffs?" I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. I saw the lines of worry, yes, but mostly I saw the entitlement. She honestly believed that my role on this earth was to be the sacrificial lamb for Ryan's sins. She was willing to let me carry $45,000 of fraud debt just to keep her golden child from facing consequences. "I don't want to see him in handcuffs, Mom," I said softly. Her face relaxed, a triumphant smile beginning to form. "Good, good girl, now tell the officer." "But," I interrupted, pulling my arm away. "I didn't steal my identity. He did. I didn't defraud a roofing company. He did. And I didn't spend the last 5 years using you as a shield. He did." "Dispatch to Unit 4, the radio crackled. "Subject has 2 outstanding bench warrants for failure to appear, driving on a suspended license, and check fraud." "SGT," Miller looked at Ryan. "Turn around, hands behind your back." "No," Helen screamed, a guttural, animalistic sound that echoed off the suburban houses. "No, you can't take him. He has anxiety. He can't go to jail." "Mom, do something," Ryan yelled as the officer spun him around and clicked the handcuffs into place. "She's lying. Tell them she's lying." "Emily," Helen threw herself at me, grabbing my lapels and shaking me. "Fix this. You have money. Call your lawyer. Get him out of this." "Ma'am, step back or you will be detained for obstruction," the second officer warned, pulling Helen off me. Helen stumbled back, her chest heaving. She looked at Ryan being shoved into the back of the cruiser, then she looked at me. The hatred in her eyes was so pure it was almost blinding. "I hate you," she screamed, her voice breaking. "I wish you had never been born. You ruined everything. You ruined our lives." The neighbors gasped. I saw Mrs. Gable cover her mouth with her hand. I stood there, alone on the driveway of the house I bought, watching the lights flash against the siding I paid for. Her words should have killed me. They should have broken me into a million pieces. But they didn't. Instead, I felt a strange lightness. The worst thing had happened. The monster under the bed had finally come out and screamed its name, and I was still standing. "You're right, Mom," I said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "I did ruin your life. I ruined the life where you get to spend my money and treat me like dirt. That life is over." I turned to the officer. "I want to press charges for the theft of the items in the truck, and I want them trespassed from the property immediately." "Understood, SGT," Miller said. "We'll need you to come down to the station to finalize the statement." As the police car drove away with Ryan, Helen collapsed onto the lawn, wailing. It was a tantrum of epic proportions, a scream of a woman who had finally been told no by the universe. I didn't go to help her up. I walked to my car, got in, and drove to the police station. I didn't look back. The fallout was swift, brutal, and entirely me. Accessory. Ryan didn't get out on bail. Because of the outstanding warrants and the severity of the identity theft charges, plus the fact that he was a flight risk with no fixed address, the judge remanded him to custody. It turned out the crypto trading was actually a Ponzi scheme he had been running on a small scale, and once the police seized his laptop, the dominoes began to fall. He was looking at 3 to 5 years in state prison. Helen's unraveling was slower, but no less absolute. With the house sold, I put it on the market 3 days after the arrest. She had nowhere to go. She tried to move in with Ralph, but without my money funding the cable, the scotch, and the easy life, Ralph's love evaporated within a week. He left her for a woman in Florida who owned a condo and didn't have a son in prison. I didn't leave Helen on the street, though. Even after everything, I couldn't do that. I was still my father's daughter, and I had a conscience. I arranged for a small, one-bedroom apartment in a senior living community. I paid the first 6 months of rent and then set up a direct transfer from her own pension to cover the rest. It was clean, safe, and modest. It was a far cry from the luxury villa I had provided, but it was a roof. 6 weeks after the arrest, I went to see her. I hadn't planned to. I was ready to fly back to Tokyo, to disappear into my work and rebuild the emotional reserves they had depleted. But she had called me, not a text, not a demand, a voicemail. Emily, it's Mom, I know you're busy. But if you're still in town, could you come by? I made that apple cake you like. The one Dad used to ask for, please. Her voice sounded smaller, older. I found her sitting on the balcony of her new apartment, overlooking a small parking lot. She looked frail. The gold jewelry was gone, likely pawned to pay for Ryan's commissary fund, and her hair was gray, the expensive dye jobs a thing of the past. When she saw me, she didn't stand up. She just gestured to the plastic chair opposite her. On the small plastic table sat a lopsided apple cake. You came, she said, her voice trembling. I have a flight in 4 hours, I said, remaining standing. I can't stay long. She nodded, looking down at her hands. I went to see Ryan yesterday, at the county jail. I said nothing, I just waited. He asked me for money, she said quietly. He didn't ask how I was, he didn't ask where I was living. He just asked if I could sell my engagement ring to get him a better lawyer. She looked up at me, and her eyes were filled with tears. But they weren't the manipulative crocodile tears I was used to. These were tears of genuine, crushing realization. I told him no, she whispered. For the first time in his life, I told him no. That must have been hard, I said, keeping my emotional guard up. He swore at me, she said, a tear tracking down her cheek. He called me useless. He said the same things to me that he used to say about you. She took a shaky breath. I sat there behind that glass and I realized something. I realized that I created a monster. I fed him and I watered him and I let him eat you alive. She reached across the table, her hand hovering near mine but not daring to touch it. You bought me a house, she said, her voice breaking. You paid my bills, you flew across the world for my birthday, and I laughed at you. I compared you to him. I was so blind, Emily. I was so desperate for his love that I threw yours away like trash. You did, I said simply. You broke my heart, Mom. You didn't just break it, you pulverized it. I know, she sobbed. I know I can't fix it. I know I don't deserve you, but I just wanted to say, I see you now, I see what you did. And I am so sorry. I looked at the woman who had given me life, and then nearly destroyed it. I felt a swell of emotion in my chest, grief, pity, love, and anger all swirling together. I wanted to hug her. I wanted to tell her everything was okay, to write a check to fix her life again. But I knew I couldn't. That was the old Emily. The new Emily knew that forgiveness didn't mean access. I forgive you, Mom, I said, and I meant it. I forgave her because carrying the hate was too heavy for my carry-on luggage. Her face lit up with a fragile hope. You do. I do, I said. But things are different now. I can't be your banker anymore. And I can't be your emotional punching bag. I'm going back to Tokyo. I'm going to live my life. Will I see you again? She asked, her voice small. Maybe, I said, on holidays, once in a while, but I need time, and I need space. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. I placed it on the table. This is the contact info for a financial planner who specializes in fixed income budgets, I said. He's already paid for. He'll help you manage your pension so you don't run out of money. I turned to leave. Emily, she let out. I stopped at the door. Yeah. You're not like your brother, she said, her voice firm. Thank God, you are so much better. I walked out of the apartment and into the bright afternoon sun. I took a deep breath, the air tasting sweet and clean. My phone buzzed in my pocket, an email from my boss about a new project in Singapore, a new adventure. I walked to my car, not with the heaviness of a headache, but with the lightness of a woman who had finally cleared her ledger. The debt was paid. The contract was terminated, and for the first time in my life, I was free.